thinking about how we start meetings.
I know.
I
You guys make fun of me every time.
I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. I remembered, finally. I am Melissa Meli, the spy.
I'm Tyler Riley, cop and a half.
I'm Tristan Miller, the saucy sleuth.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/adcpod and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/adcpod. And today, I want to recommend Murder in Mesopotamia, which is the book that we are going to be covering on today's program.
Okay, that's what we're talking about.
It is. It's a book by Agatha Christie.
Yes.
Starring, as they say in the book fields, our favorite detective, Hercule Poirot.
Yeah. That little egg boy.
Yeah. And
What a man.
what a mighty good man.
So, do you have it up?
I have many things up.
Okay. Fun fact, the US edition was originally sold for $2 hairs.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Very cheap. It was originally published in the Collins Crime Club, which sounds like a fun, book service. Did you know Book of the Month Club, used to go back to, 1920-something?
Yeah.
That, service, that's where F. Scott Fitzgerald was first published.
Really?
So everyone who's complaining about this weird, service where people send, Go Fresh or whatever, oh, millennials are so lazy. They've been doing that the whole time.
Yeah.
It's been is what I have to say to them.
I agree. I could not have said it better myself.
Thank you.
So this is one of those books where we start off following a complete stranger that we've never met before in our entire lives.
Yes.
And for a while.
For a third of the book. Because I read it on my Kindle, and it shows me percentage. Yeah. Percentage, and I tracked it, and it was 33% of the way into the book is when Poirot appears.
So
We'll start from there.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. I checked my copy out from my local library.
That is very charming of you.
Oh, and I bet you'd drive a Prius too if you could.
I've never driven. I would only ride a bike if I
said
could.
if you could.
I can't. But if I could, I wouldn't choose a Prius.
Why wouldn't you?
Because Ford is the best.
It's so economical.
So this lady.
Yes.
So we start off at the beginning of the book. I mean, we didn't do a wacky thing where we just
Can we read one of these books backwards? Start with the conclusion to see how it happens.
And then we could do Greek tragedy style.
Yes.
Start in the middle.
Yeah.
Then go to the beginning and the end.
Or we could just
Not read. Sorry.
goodbye, we're done.
Yep.
No, we could take the chapter titles or numbers, put them all in a hat, and just pick them out, and that's the order we read them in.
Ooh, like a choose your own adventure almost.
Kind of.
Yeah. Vote on the Twitter poll I've just posted of how we should read the next book.
And the Facebook poll. Be sure to follow us at ADCPod on the Twitter. Not the Instagrams. But the Twitter at ADCPod.
Yeah.
And follow us on Facebook, either in the group or the page.
We have a group where you can berate us if you want, or go, good job.
But you could do that on the page, too.
Oh, I suppose you could.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say it right now. We will have an Instagram. We will.
Ooh.
Exciting news. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. Breaking.
Oh God, I just said it.
Yeah.
on the
Now,
thing.
here's the other thing. That means you're in charge.
Was there going to ever be any other alternative than me being in charge of the Instagram?
No.
I know how to take pictures on my mobile device.
But you have an Android, you see.
Yeah.
So you should not be in charge of the Instagram.
Why not?
The camera's terrible on an Android.
You're terrible on an Android.
That's true. I have too many emotions. I got that emotion chip, like in Star Trek.
you have yours removed when you get an Android.
Oh, is that so?
That's how it works.
I haven't felt emotion in years.
Oh, that explains it. Ugh.
Yes, I'm gonna make us an Instagram. It's gonna be great. Anyway,
okay,
Is
so
there murder in Mesopotamia?
Yeah, there is a murder.
There is, in fact, a murder in Mesopotamia. So we meet this. It's in first person, limited point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I did have an education in 4th grade. Yeah. So.
Man, I wish I had.
Doesn't your mom listen to this?
Yeah. She was she did well English-wise. She did well all around.
Yeah.
But she specifically did well English and literature-wise. But anyhow.
I was like, are you really going to die?
No.
Like
I don't remember.
I mean, none of us really do.
But anyway, it's in first person.
It's in first person.
It's not Hastings.
It's not Hastings.
It's not Hastings. It's this lady.
Yeah, we don't know her.
What's this lady
I don't
nurse?
know her.
To quote Mariah Carey.
Yeah,
I don't know her.
It's Amy Leatherin. Nurse Leatherin. And she is...
Not Nurse Lacerin. I'll tell you that.
She is something.
So, this lady, she's a nurse.
She is super very judgy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes she's right, but most of the times it's just a little much. It's like, all right, okay, calm yourself.
Yeah.
You're not perfect either.
Yeah, she don't know these people.
She doesn't.
Yeah.
She's in a foreign country.
Yeah. Which she makes very apparent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This was a book where I was just like, even for Agatha, this is racist.
Yeah.
I mean, this is...
Goodness.
Yeah.
This is garbage.
And can I tell you what I think? Because she was on digs a lot as well, right?
Yes, her second husband was an archaeologist.
Yes. And so she probably went to Iraq. And so she probably did not like it.
She didn't dig it?
Ow! It did not rock her world.
That's good.
So I have a feeling that all these predisposed biases may be just her getting it all out of her system.
Well, how did she get back to England?
She around?
Trains?
Yeah.
I
She
don't know.
around so far away.
Right, we're not doing real... Okay. So we're doing a joke. Okay. So the opening chapter is from the perspective of, I believe, is it Dr. Leidner? Yeah.
God, it jumps around so much.
And so Dr. Leidner sees Nurse Leatherin.
Terrible name. I'm so sorry.
They never say her first name until only at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
And then it becomes Nurse Leatherin. And then, like, when I was looking at the synopsis on Wikipedia, it talks about Amy. I'm like, who is that? I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
right.
they barely ever say.
So, yeah, at the end of this first chapter, after meeting Nurse Leatherin in England, I believe,
Yep.
we have a moment where Dr. Leidner is thinking, Nurse Leatherin, he thought, would do.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
And I read that and I went, huh.
Yeah.
And then it picks up from her perspective.
Yeah.
So her friend, I guess, Dr. Riley. Dr. Riley knows this guy, Dr. Leidner, who
I hardly know her.
who's going on this archaeological dig in Iraq, and he introduces, they meet Nurse Leatherin, and Dr. Leidner had been looking for someone to come along with his wife and be a companion for his wife on this expedition.
Who seems to be going through it.
Yeah, she's having a real rough time. She's not physically sick, but she's
does not want to be there.
Yeah,
it seems like she's just like her heart isn't in it.
Yeah, she seems to be having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, and everyone's very dismissive of it. It's super cool.
At one point they even say it's like she has a nervous condition, which I was like, that's a very polite term for what's happening.
Oh, it struck me much more like a very misogynistic.
Sure, yeah, of the time, but like, for what is happening, like it's polite in as much as it's downplaying it. Of like, oh, she from the outside looks like she has paranoid schizophrenia, so it's like, oh, she's just nervous, which is fascinating.
Well, I also just think it's like I just think it's like an of the time thing. You know, like your grandparents are like, "Oh, your knee hurts. That's just growing pains," and like, no, there's like a hairline fracture, but like, sure, growing pains.
Yeah, or like my grandmother telling me that if I went outside without a hat, I would get pneumonia, which turns out not true, and or wet hair or something like that.
Yeah, and you'll catch your death. That whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it came from a very genuine place. My poor grandmother lost 2 of her siblings real young because it was the early 1900s, like,
that'll do it.
So she was didn't hurt me to make sure I had dry hair and put a hat on, so made grandma feel better.
But yeah, it downplays it a lot because what she claims is like she's seen people at the window. She's convinced someone's trying to kill her. She's like really anxious and she's really amped up. Yeah,
that's when we find that out when we get to when Nurse Leathern comes over to join everybody. And she finally does meet her, and she seems, from the nurse's perspective, she seems like a pretty cool lady.
Yeah.
But does seem very agitated.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people have reasons for being very agitated. And it can be explained by them having real legitimate reasons to have emotions.
Yes. And also we get a pretty quick idea of how what's this lady's name again?
Who?
Miss Leidner?
Mrs.
Leidner.
Yeah.
Like her first name?
No, just like, I forgot her name.
Louise is her first name.
Louise Leidner. We get a quick idea how like everyone seems to be rather enchanted by her. She has a very charismatic energy, as well as being very chaotic. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly the kind of person you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we do get like a bit of gossip.
The hot gossip.
I think that's the name of the chapter, number 3. I think it's gossip.
Yeah.
Where Amy is going around being nosy.
Yeah, as she does.
All up in everybody's business. And there is something I highlighted because...
I want to know if it's the same thing I highlighted. Please go on.
I bet it is.
I couldn't highlight.
My highlight was, I can explain best what I meant by saying that they all pass the butter to each other too politely.
Yes.
That is who our narrator is, just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do remember that.
But what I highlighted is she's, we're being introduced to the cast of characters. And, of course, Mercado is a rather queer fish. He has such a very odd beard, put in Mrs. Kelsey. Like, what a thing to say.
What a thing.
Like, okay.
In modern terms, it would mean something completely different.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
And also, did Agatha, just discover the word queer before writing this book?
It seems so, yes.
It's in this book, literally in every chapter, multiple times.
Yes.
It's like, get this girl a thesaurus.
I also think that was, I mean, of course, connotations are different today. And
for sure. Yeah,
and I think that was just also used a lot more at the time. I kind of see it, I've seen it in other literature and, plays kind of thing. Yeah.
No, I get that. For me, it was just, the excessive amount of times.
Right.
Could you imagine if you replaced it with weirdo every time? What a weirdo fish this man was. Such a weirdo beard. Weirdo.
That weirdo nasal chant that Abdullah does in chapter 10 as well.
Oh, boy.
Poor Abdullah. Bless that child's heart.
Just, as we talk through this book, picture it just being very racist, just all through, just a little sprinkled in.
Yep.
You know, with maybe the salt shaker cap wasn't even on. They just went like, here's some salt. Here's
some racism.
Yeah. It's bad.
So hamburger racism.
Yep. So we're there in Iraq, and she's being very judgy.
Yes.
She's meeting all the cast of characters. Who else does she meet?
Let's talk about these people in this book who I remember who some of them are. So I'm just going to reference real quick. So we have Miss Johnson, who is one of Dr. Leidner's colleagues.
Wait, is that Sheila?
No, Anne.
Okay. Oh, yes.
She's been there forever, very devoted to Dr. Leidner. Then, of course, there is Dr. Leidner himself, and he is an archaeologist of some repute. Thanks, Wikipedia. Great. Richard Carey, who is...
I've never heard repute. I've only heard ill repute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It works the other way around.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that before.
There are a couple words that have like only the negative.
Like uncouth. You can't be couth.
Right. Anyway, so there's Richard Carey, who is another longtime colleague of Dr. Leidner, and he is very handsome.
Oh, yeah.
Woof. Just the most handsome.
Who did you cast?
I didn't.
You didn't? Did you cast anyone in your mind of the handsome man?
Oh, 90s Triple H.
Okay.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Okay.
I cast myself. So please continue.
Great. Then there is Dr. Riley, who is the doctor that the nurse was introduced to.
That's me.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I thought Jonathan C. Riley, and I couldn't get it out of my head.
Oh, fair enough.
Which is unfortunate.
And then his daughter, Sheila Riley. Who is a pill.
I like each podcast recording, everyone ages 40 years.
I know. We become just old people.
Which is appropriate. Would you like a butterscotch?
I would.
I don't have any. It was a joke. I'm sorry. I used to have.
Rude.
You remember. I used to have a bunch of butterscotches.
You did.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I agreed to do your other podcast.
That's true. It's like hey, do you want a butterscotch, young man? You record for an hour, I'll give you a single butterscotch.
You know, I never think of getting
butterscotch. It was already unwrapped and loose.
I'll give you one of those loose butterscotches.
From my pocket.
It hasn't been in my mouth before, no sir.
Do you know, I never think of getting butterscotch, because, you know, why?
What do you mean, why?
It's my favorite candy.
No, but like I don't think of getting hard candies usually. It's not something that like occurs to me. Okay. But then in Disney World, they have an entire store devoted to butterscotch.
Oh.
Yes, in I think Germany and Epcot. And it is run by Werther's, and they do give out little Werther's originals if you just drop in. But they also have like a plethora of outrageous desserts featuring butterscotch and also butterscotch popcorn or is it caramel? No, I'm sorry, it's caramel.
Okay.
Still,
but yeah, that sounds wonderful. Have you been to Chip, the cookie place in Astoria?
No.
Go to Chip. It's great.
Where is it?
Kind of near QED. It's like right a couple of blocks away. It's really close to Ditmars.
Okay.
I had a butterscotch cookie from them. Delicious. But they're like scone size cookies. They're delicious. I figured out the reason. By the way, one of the reasons I went so bananas with the butterscotch is it tastes like scotch at a certain point. And when I was getting sober, I'm like, well, this is nice for me, personally. If you get, like, a really good butterscotch, I had one, I was like, this tastes like alcohol. Oh, it tastes like scotch, you idiot. Yeah. Yep. So, if you get, like, dollar store butterscotch, not so much. But if you get, like, Primo.
Yeah.
So, that's my tip. If you're trying to...
Blue Label butterscotch.
I'll take some of your top shelf butterscotch, please.
Come on, Werther.
None of your butterscotch
is marketing idea. Oh my goodness.
But I've become my Nana recently. I've noticed that, like, I'm, like, stealing Splenda packets from places and, like, putting it in my pocket.
Oh my god, my grandma did that too, except Splenda didn't really exist when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, you're paying for a cup of coffee that costs $3. You should take some.
Yeah.
Oh, but I go overboard. Like, I have, like, worn, like, suit jackets and I'm like, there's, like, a pocket full of Splenda. Like, I have so much Splenda. It's a problem.
Eventually the packet starts wearing down and it's like, oh no.
It starts fusing with the jacket.
Yeah.
It's like, gotta use it today.
Yeah. You should bring some of those over so when you have coffee, you can just bring your own sweetener, sir.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Did you know the only way sugar can rot is with water?
Oh.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just
Yeah,
to
just
go forever.
sits. Yeah, pretty much. Just kind of sits there.
Huh.
Like
But the way,
honey.
yeah. But if you put it in water, it'll. So don't do that.
Don't store
Gotta stop
your
storing my sugar in the pool.
Yeah.
Not in the deep end. Don't go in there. Got a stew going.
Oh god. Oh.
I like to have fun.
So then we have Joseph Mercado of the Odd Beard. He is another.
What is that? His Game of Thrones title? Yar, I'm Odd Beard.
That is how they talk in Game of Thrones.
Some of them, they're pirates. Some of them.
They are.
So.
They are.
Yar.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That one guy who's devoted to Emilia Clarke's character kind of sounds like he's like Khaleesi.
Jon Snow?
No, the other guy, the old man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that eats the big one in the last season, right?
Yeah.
I've seen
Spoilers.
season 1, 2, 3, and the last one,
Great.
which is as intended. Yeah.
It's killing me that I don't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
Very handsome.
Oh yeah, he is very handsome.
A dilf, if you will.
Sure.
So we got Weird Beard.
Joseph Mercado, he's a colleague of Dr. Leidner, and he's been there for like past 2 years helping him dig. And he is often tired. So, you know.
Yeah.
Identifiable.
Yeah.
Relatable. And then his wife, Marie, who is...
I like identifiable instead of relatable.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the word relatable.
No, but I like that.
That's good.
It's like, yeah, that's... I can...
Yeah.
I recognize that within myself.
Yeah, exactly. And then...
The tired in me sees the tired in you. Now I'm a...
Yes, exactly. His wife, Marie, who's very... It says she is devoted, his devoted wife.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yes. And she's not a fan of Mrs. Leidner.
No, not at all.
Yeah, kind of hostile to the nurse, but honestly that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. She's kind of hostile to everyone too. Anyway, David Emmett, who is a quiet young American man, and he's working on the dig. Again, second year there.
He's the one in the photo booth, right?
I barely...
The dark room. He takes
Yes.
photographs.
Oh,
He's the digs
That is him?
photographer.
And
Okay.
that's what his alibi... Well, I'm getting ahead.
Yeah. But
yeah, this is alibi.
because he's like also such a soft boy, and I'm like, yeah, of course you're taking photographs. People have been the same for years.
Yeah. Then
He's an e-boy. Sorry.
There is Bill Coleman, who is another young man working on the dig. He isn't really into archaeology, but he really likes to forge things, apparently.
That's true.
Like signatures?
Yeah. Some of
And
those
then-
signatures.
There's Carl Reiter, Reiter. I don't think I know how else to pronounce that other than Reiter. A young American man from Chicago. And it's his first year. No, he's the photographer.
Oh, he's the photographer.
Yes.
Oh, my mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to distinguish the two of them sometimes.
There's a lot of people in this
There's
book.
so many people in this book.
There's so many people in this book.
Like, and you thought Orient Express was bad. Oy.
I mean, there are, but they're so well developed and, like, distinct. They're distinct.
Are you
in
talking
Murder on the Orient Express, right? Or this book.
In Murder in the Orient Express.
Okay.
No, what I mean
we were
is...
both...
I know, I was like, you were both offended, which I understand. No, what I mean is, because they were so well developed in Murder on the Orient Express, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, of course, that guy. Yes, I know who he is. Whereas these two people that we just confused, it's like, does it matter?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah.
We will probably never talk about them again. And then there is the priest, Father Levigny, or whatever, who is a French cleric, as they put it, which now makes me think of him as a Dungeons and Dragons character.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And he's brand new to the team, but he has a great reputation. And that is all the people in the book. And it's been an hour that we've been talking.
Yeah.
Something like that. Got a lot of good serial content, though.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, okay. So those are all the people. She meets all of them. They all have various opinions about this Mrs. Leitner.
Yeah.
Some of them like them, some of them don't.
Yeah. But of
got
course,
a whole bunch of hot goss.
Yeah, a bunch of hot goss. And that's most of the first book. Then... Can I say what happens next?
Yes. Oh, no.
Dr. Leitner thinks everybody loves his wife.
Yes. Because...
He's like, everyone is just crazy about her. Oh my gosh.
Yes, which is not the case.
But we do get why Mrs. Leitner has been agitated. Mm-hmm. Was that what you were going to say next, Tristan?
No.
Okay. We should talk about that, though, yeah? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
So, Mrs. Leitner was married very young to a guy who went into the war.
Pew pew.
Yeah. And then he did something shady and she gave him up. Is that what happened?
No, he died in the war. Quote unquote. Wasn't he?
No, like, you're both right.
Yes.
He was running away from the situation when he died in a train crash.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, train with a T.
As opposed to the other way of writing?
Like plane. I want to make sure that I was heard correctly.
Okay.
A crane crash. She was just
because I don't really hear about too many train crashes nowadays. You hear about plane crash, so I just wanted to make sure that...
We also call it a derailment.
Yeah, exactly.
There's plenty of derailments in New York. There was like 2 or 3 last year. It was nuts.
Well, there's a derailment in this conversation,
I'm
right?
sorry. So he died. He dead.
Yes.
Right. And...
his body and face were so, like, mangled afterwards.
Yeah.
He was gooey.
It was,
oh, gosh.
Why did you say that word? That specific word. But yeah, so she had basically given him up to the government for, like, he's running away. And he knew about this before he died.
Yeah.
That his wife betrayed him. So, years later, she starts getting these threatening letters.
Threateners, if you will.
Yep.
Or nasty notes, as I call them.
Yep, exactly. It purports to be him threatening her that he will kill her if she remarries.
Yeah.
Great.
Which she's recently done. And the notes have come back.
Yeah.
And she's very scared.
Right. So they stopped for a while and then she marries Dr. Leitner and then the notes resume. Mm-hmm.
And then they go away again because when they leave the country, they leave England, and then they start showing up again, even though they're in Iraq.
Right. So she's, I mean, you know, your allegedly dead ex-husband is sending you
hate mail.
Threats.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'd be pretty upset too.
When your husband's ghost ats you, you're gonna be a little concerned.
Yeah. And so everyone has kind of been like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't buy it,
This
man.
doesn't sound plausible. He also had a younger brother that hated her. Yeah. So, you know, there's the concern that it might be him impersonating him or that maybe he didn't die or something happened. But she's she's real nervous about it. And everyone is just dismissing her.
Yeah.
No one takes her seriously. So...
And she's claimed to see a face at her window, tapping at her chamber door, stuff like that. She's very...
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.
Exactly. And our nurse friend doesn't believe her really either. She
very sympathetic listener, though.
Yeah.
Give her that.
Listener. Oh, no, for sure.
Give her that.
She inspires trust in people for some reason. I mean, I guess she should.
I mean, it's kind of a similar thing to, like, the Nick Carraway thing from Gatsby, where it's like, I keep all of my judgments inside.
Yeah.
And I never let them out.
That's actually very true. Yeah. It is very similar to Carraway in that way.
Is that his name?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Great.
Yeah, good job.
So take that earlier me that said I didn't know how to read.
Hey, let's not get carried away with that, okay?
Yeah, so...
that got
me. So, she shows the letters to our nurse friend, and she sees other samples of her handwriting for some reason. I can't remember why. And the handwriting looks real similar to her handwriting. So there's the thought that she's faking these letters for attention.
Because she does love the drama. Everyone has been like, she loves a fuss.
Yeah.
She loves causing stuff. Like, a lot of people have theories because there's a couple of young men within the party that are like really got the hots for her.
Sure.
And people are like, oh, she's doing that on purpose because she loves the attention. And so...
Yeah.
WTF, why the fuss?
Yeah, basically. All right. So...
Fussy Verdon, is that anything?
Like Fosse Verdon.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm there now.
So the answer was 50% something.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So... and then she dies.
Yeah, she gets murdered. She gets hit in the head with a blunt object.
Yeah, like super definitely a murder.
Yeah, and she...
Not like, oops, I died.
She's laying... Oops, all death.
I was just thinking, I just couldn't get it out.
But yeah, she's laying there in her bed, and she has like a crushed in face. It's very gruesome. And at one point, someone does bring up the possibility of suicide. It's like, how? In what world?
Yeah.
So elaborate. And so, so they're like, oh gosh, what do we do? The doctor on hand says, oh, she's been dead for about an hour.
Yeah, that's Dr. Riley.
Yes.
Who, incidentally, no one ever suspects of the crime.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Because he's a doctor.
Right.
You know, do no harm.
Yeah, clearly.
But then one of these cats in the party is like, I happen to know that Hercule Poirot, the world's greatest detective, is happening to pass through this part of the world right now. Do you want me to go hit him up?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. Sounds weird, but fine. I mean, what else do we got? Because it's the police that they call.
Yeah.
They're like, we got a better guy than us.
Right. So Captain
does not inspire confidence in their police force.
Right. Captain Maitland, by the way, is there throughout this entire story.
Oops.
But it will not seem like he is.
That is correct.
Right.
Because occasionally I kept going back and being like, who's Captain Maitland? Oh, right. He's the actual police investigator that is doing, I guess, nothing. But yeah, so Poirot rolls up and goes about interviewing everyone in the world.
This brings me to another highlight.
Yes, please.
From our new favorite narrator. Of course I knew he was a foreigner, but I hadn't expected him to be quite as foreign as he was.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. No, Heifer, I don't.
She also refers to him as ugly a lot.
Yeah.
So rude. And she's like, at one point, she's like, I wonder if he has a wife. No, can't possibly be. And I'm like, that's so mean.
Yeah. Fortunately, she's very polite outwardly, so I guess people don't get offended by her very, very harsh thoughts. But, ugh. Anyway.
So he shows up and he starts interviewing everybody, and they all have opinions, and yada, 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 and it's still not clear at all.
Right.
At all. And then with Amy,
yes,
the nurse, who's the woman that she keeps bumping into that's doing whack stuff?
Miss Johnson.
Miss Johnson.
Miss Johnson is very upset, like, is blaming herself, like, that she didn't, like, she should have heard something, but she also does very honestly say to Poirot, like, I was not a huge fan of her.
Yeah.
But because she really seemed to, because, you know, she's one of, Miss Johnson is one of Dr. Leidner's longtime colleagues.
Oh, yes.
And so...
And there was a change once he got married.
Yeah. And so she wasn't a fan, but at the same time did seem, like, really earnestly upset about her death and, you know, seemed forthright. Poirot actually was believing what she was saying.
Yes.
But she gets pretty upset.
She gets pretty upset, and she does some very interesting things. She bumps Amy, and she bump into each other, and she's holding a note, and then immediately burns it up.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, that's normal. And then...
Next to normal.
Yeah. And then... and this is far later in the book, but I can't with this, and we gotta keep moving. She's on the roof, and Amy is once again just hanging out next to her, nosing, just, and she's like, oh, I know how it was done. Oh no, I know how it was done. And then runs away, not explaining anything to Amy. And then the next day, she's dead.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, basically, in between all of this, we're getting interviews with Poirot and the rest of the cast of characters, and it really, like, we get some clues in there. We get some insight as to who liked her, who didn't, but, like, not a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things is someone, I forget who, says that she and, what's his name? Handsome man. The other longtime colleague of Dr. Leidner had been having an affair.
Yes.
So, when he is interrogated, he's like, I hated her. And it's like, okie doke.
Sure.
Great. So I think that's the most valuable piece of information that
other than all of the alibis. There's only 2 people that don't have good alibis, is that correct?
But then they don't really have motive or something.
Yeah, it's all very strange. Oh, and they determined that there was only 10 minutes in which she could have been murdered.
Yes.
And so they're like, okay. And so her husband was on the roof with somebody else.
And this whole time, Poirot truly believes in Dr. Leidner's complete and utter devotion and passionate love for his wife.
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know.
Yep. And then, so Mrs. Johnson's been murdered. She's been poisoned.
Yeah.
She normally has a glass of water halfway through the night. Someone basically put, like, bleach in it, and then she died.
But it took her a while. Like, that day when she was on the roof and kind of acting real weird and just got out, like, the window.
Yeah.
She had already been poisoned, and it was working her way through her system.
I see.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened. That's how I understood it.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I did read the book quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And have watched and absorbed other
media
murdery things.
Oh, sure.
In between them, so I'm
hazy on the details.
Yeah, because there is a plot in Murder Mystery that is similar.
Okay.
In that someone, yeah.
Yeah, but the main point is she's gone now.
Yes.
And then that's kind of the straw that big.
And from a killer's point of view, rightfully so.
Yeah.
She knew too much.
Yeah, her last words were the window.
Yeah. So it takes a bit for Poirot to kind of work out what all of this meant, because he'd been suspicious of Father Levigny, or whatever how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry, I have no idea. The cleric. And he had been like looking into him because he had motive, because what Poirot figures out is that the priest guy, our cleric, is actually a thief and has been posing as a cleric,
as a hot priest.
Yeah, and has been like swapping all of Dr. Leidner's valuables for like fakes, and so the motive would then be, if she figured it out, then he would have a motive to kill her. But it didn't quite add up for Poirot.
Yeah, he does disappear the night before Mrs. Johnson's death. He just is outie. And the reason Poirot figures that out, and this is something I forgot to mention, there was a bit of wax on a cup earlier, and so he's making forgeries and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So he's gone, but it doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
Because he's also gone after Mrs. Johnson gets murdered, so the timeline's different, and...
Yeah, I mean, because it took her, like, a number of hours to die. It could have been him, but, like, it still didn't quite track.
Yeah. Do you want to take a break?
I think we should. Okay. I think this is the time.
Hello everybody, this is Tristan Miller, the Saucy Sleuth, coming at you with some announcements and advertisements. Of course, you can go to audibletrial.com/ADCpod, get a free book on us, helps the show. We're also on the Scavengers Network. You can check out all their other content, including State Your Case and Insanely Haunted, which I don't know what it's about, but I'm going to check it out this week, and I'll let you know. There's just a lot of podcasts and a lot of choices on Scavengers Network, and sometimes it's hard to keep up. Also, they have Wet Hot Moon Juice, which is a NaNoWriMo podcast. So if you're doing National Novel Writing Month, maybe you can find some catharsis there. Couple big announcements. Number one, we have our own Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/ADCpod to support this podcast there. We're looking to do this show weekly, but in order to do that, we have to get some of your support. So if you want to donate, even at the dollar level, you get access to bonus content and episodes that we'll be making in the future. Speaking of, this is our last novel that we're going to be reviewing for a while. They're very time-consuming, and they're very big. As you can tell, this episode is very long. So they're going to be available on the Patreon for a bit, and then we'll unlock them once we reach a certain amount of donors. But we're going to be still reviewing them. It'll just be available on the Patreon for even at that $1 level, you'll get access to them. Any help would be great. I would love it. If you were to support us. We really love doing this podcast, and we want to be able to keep going with it. Specifically, if we can do it on a weekly basis, I think that would be really great. We're looking to get 10 donors to be able to do that, and we already have 2. So here's hoping for 8 more. Tweet us at ADCpod. Okay. And check out the new Instagram. It's at ADCpod as well. Go check it out. It's great. Melissa's doing a great job there. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the episode. I love you all. Hope to hear from you soon. Okay, so what happens next in the book is another third of the book where Hercule Poirot explains absolutely everything that's happened in the book again.
Yeah.
And my God, I love a parlor reveal, but my God.
This one's a little too much.
It's like, it was literally like 15 pages of just a straight monologue.
No, it was like 30 pages.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was, oh my gosh. It was just.
It's not a long book. Like, it's 181 pages or something like that?
It's 265.
No. Well, in my Kindle, it's... I'm sorry, 281.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still 30 pages.
Yeah, and that's too many pages for...
I'm sorry for that aggressive no. I was just like...
It's okay.
It was more just like disbelief, like, oh my God, it felt like so much longer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it still wasn't that long. Like, 281 is like a pretty short book.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know book. I don't know how a book does it. Is that a short book?
Yeah, it's pretty short.
Okay.
I mean, it's like...
For a book, yeah.
It's not a novella. It's still not... it's still a novel, but it's a pretty, easy read.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just, there is so much of...
And he explains why
detail.
everybody can't be the murderer, why he suspected every person, and blah, blah, blah. At one point he says he suspected the nurse, and she gets really fussy about it, and he's like...
Yeah, calm down, you're racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. But, and by the way, I have to interject here.
Yes.
Because I did figure this one out. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I figured this one out kind of at the beginning. I mean, I was entertaining other theories as well, but I did actually, I figured this one out.
Can I mention something, though? The best thing happens in these 30 pages. At one point, Poirot describes Handsome Man as having le sex appeal, which is perfect.
Yeah. So I actually confused Dr. Riley and Dr. Leidner at the very beginning of the book.
Sure.
I thought that it was Dr. Riley who had said, that Nurse Leathern would do. And so I actually suspected Dr. Riley for much of it. However, I'm like, why is nobody looking into him?
Yeah.
Because one of the theories that Poirot came up with, and we didn't mention this before, was that one of the people in the dig group was either the former husband or the former husband's brother.
Yeah.
Pose,
Yeah.
and an assumed identity.
Which is why he was so suspicious of the cleric.
Yeah. And that's, once that was posed, I'm like, that is the most interesting theory, and if it is not that, I will be very upset.
Yeah. I would also say the reason the cleric was cleared is because he, asked the police, do you know of any famous thieves that might be going through? And they're like,
sure.
This guy. And then they caught him and took him to prison.
Yeah. So, yeah. He goes through everything, and the entire time he keeps repeating how devoted Dr. Leidner was to his wife. Couldn't possibly be him. He has an alibi.
He's visibly shaking and very upset.
Yeah.
Still.
Except, though.
Dun dun dun.
It is him.
Yes, of course.
Because even though he was on the roof the whole time, he was able to sneak over to the window. Thank you, Miss Johnson, for your illuminating words in your death. You did a great service. So he goes over to her window, and I guess she leans over and is like, "Oh, hey."
He taps on. He puts the mask of the face she saw at night.
Yeah.
And she goes, "This is a trick. I need to figure out who's doing this to me." And he does this very genius thing of, do you know what a cairn is? A cairn is a rock, a large stone, which you are meant to be stacked on top of each other for decorative or informational purposes, often used in hiking trails. He takes a cairn, he had one with a hole through it, because you can do that, and he puts a rope through it. And he swings the cairn in such a way where it bashes her face in from the roof through the window. And then this was a little hazy. I believe he quickly goes down and then puts her body on the bed, so it doesn't exactly make sense.
Swaps out the rug or something. Yeah.
And then he he places the cairn back in the pile with the blood stain down. Easy enough. And that's how he did it. Now, why he did it
is because he is indeed her former husband.
No.
Yes.
So she just married the same man twice.
Which, that's
Didn't
love.
Even know it.
Yeah.
And he was still crazy about her. So the reason that the letters stopped and started kind of when they did, because Poirot was like, well, why wouldn't he have just prevented the marriage? And it's like, oh, it's because he married her. And then the threatening letters started up again because indeed she did fall for Mr. Handsome Man, and they were having an affair. And yes, he hated her because he loved her so much, and that whole thing.
I love John. I hate John. I love him.
Yeah.
I hate John.
So they were having this passionate affair, and he knew about it, and that's why he got so upset. And then, he just couldn't help himself, and he killed her. And then killed Miss Johnson, of course, when she figured it out.
Yeah. And then they send him to prison.
Yeah.
And then Sheila marries somebody. There's always a marriage at the end of these things.
Yeah, like one of the
tertiary characters.
The photographer, probably.
Something. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Really
doesn't. Super doesn't matter.
Okay, so that's the plot of the book. What do y'all think of this book? Okay. So
here, I'll talk about what I liked first.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that we finally had a murder plot that was not inspired by money. Because it is the most, it happens all the time, but it is the most boring reason.
The crime passionnel.
Yes. It's much more interesting. And I really enjoyed that I figured it out.
Yeah.
And that it was a really interesting concept. And like, I love, hidden identities and all that stuff. All that, very good. The way we got there, like the actual structure of this book and our narrator and just, all that racism that we... Like, just so
that we
much.
normally love so much here on the program.
It was in a way that was...
It was excessive.
It was excessive, and it didn't serve anything. Like, we weren't like, oh, this character is bad because he is racist, or this is problematic.
Just felt like she didn't like Middle Eastern people.
Yeah. So, it was gross, and like... I enjoyed the idea. I enjoyed that, but like getting there was not great.
No.
So I've been debating numbers, but I think I'm going to have to just go ahead and give it a 5.
All right.
Okay.
The possibility of being Dr. Leitner had early on crossed my mind, because generally what I do, unfortunately, is I'm like, who is the least likely? It's probably them,
Yeah.
And so that crossed, and then I went away. And I'm going to be honest, this is how I feel about this book. We decided to read this book next, obviously, because it's the next in the series.
Yeah.
About 2 months ago. And we just hadn't got a chance to sit down and talk about it. So I checked it out 2 months ago, and I finished it last night. That is how difficult it was for me to get through this book. Just that first third. Once Poirot showed up, it was pretty easy for me to get through it.
The first third was...
But it was abysmal and just a slog. And doesn't really add to the anything. Because what happens is you have Nurse Leatherin getting the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And then you have Poirot show up and get the lay of the land. And then at the end, you have him for 30 pages tell you the lay of the land. And then the book ends. So it felt almost as if she had one idea and kept repeating it 3 times.
This should have been a short story.
Yes, precisely. I'm sure it'd make an excellent film.
Yeah.
And that is something that I was talking to Christina about, of like, I think Poirot is best served in short stories and in the TV series. I think when you have a novel, I think you can kind of tell that she's stretching a lot of things out, unless it's something like Murder on the Orient Express.
A couple of them are brilliant.
Yeah. Or like Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is genius. Yeah. But... yeah, it was just very difficult to get through. None of the tertiary characters were particularly likable. It was also one of those things of, she told us how likable this woman was that gets murdered, and she never shows us. She never lets her be charming in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to be on her side, so when she does get murdered, you care in any way, shape, or form. I think Poirot also doesn't do. It's not he's not at his best in this one.
No, he's there and he solves it, and it's like, but it's not. There's the charm is not there.
Yeah, there's no flair to it. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 10.
Okay.
1 out of 10. Tyler.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't like it. Couldn't.
You gave it Murder for Christmas.
Yeah,
rating.
I will never read this book. I will. Oh my gosh, it was just a slog.
I would read this before Murder for Christmas, though.
At least Murder for Christmas. If I were to read it
Don't
again, I would know that it was horrible. Like I was suspect of Murder for Christmas from the beginning because I was like, it's not my boy. Whereas like this, my boy failed me. My favorite detective failed me, and I did not.
Didn't care for it.
She should know better.
All right, fair enough.
You know, I love racism as much as the next person. And the next person hates racism. So this was a time. This is something that like I really had to like really just turn everything off in order to read the book, because I just kept letting myself get distracted because I could not get into this book.
Mm-hmm.
I hate reiteration, so I won't go into all the same points, and I'll just give it a rating of 3 out of 10.
Yeah. So that's an average score of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are desperate if you've finished all of the other Poirot books, you can read this one. But I would say, Melissa, I would agree with your point. The concept is very strong. It was very enjoyable. You get a good sense of like what the compound where they all live is. Like all those parts are strong, but it just too long.
When she starts talking about the letters, I'm like, yes, thank you.
Can I tell you though? She at one point goes on about what an archaeologist, because Nurse Lethington visits the dig site, and she goes on about it. Yeah. And it feels like she just wanted to talk about archaeology, and she's like, write an essay. It's fine. You could just do that. Yeah. You can write a memoir about when you were in the Middle East doing an archaeological dig. That's fine.
And like, listen, I like long books that have lots of detail.
Love Lord of the Rings.
I enjoy Lord of the Rings. I also really like Charles Dickens, who got paid by the word.
Yes, he did.
Love Charles Dickens. Beautiful books. But this was like, what? Why? No. This is superfluous.
And may I say, with both of those examples, given them long books, the prose is eloquent and is beautiful as well as being excessive. Whereas with Agatha, she writes in a way that is easy to read.
Right.
So when she goes on for a very long time, it's just kind of boring.
Right.
Because there's in no way is it like, I don't know, like flowery.
Right. But when you have something that is a very, like the Big Four, that is also a very strong book of hers, there's a lot of detail in it, because there has to be, because it's just a very intricate plot. Murder on the Orient Express, Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and Big Four have been probably the strongest.
Yeah. I think she also has a very similar problem to a lot of speculative fiction and a lot of pulp fiction, of like the concept is so strong and then we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how 1.5, because I don't want it to be Murder for Christmas level, because she deserves better.
It's true. There was a story in there, she just didn't write it well.
Though similarities, both of those books have characters with past names, so that's now my sign to be on my guard to see if the book's absolute garbage.
I see. Okay.
If there's a pass nay, I say nay. I pass and I nay. So.
All right. Well, I think we have solved it. The crime
of this book.
And therefore, I will call this meeting adjourned.
Is that still recorded?
Yep.